So with The Mandalorian Season 3, Chapter 20 now officially out on Disney+, a lot of fans are anticipating the next one to see exactly how Jon and Dave are going to handle the last half of The Mandalorian Season 3, up until the last episode that's really going to conclude everything until we head into the Ahsoka show, as well as Mando Season 4. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. Now, given that Disney is already going over set planning for Mando Season 4, what kind of sets they're going to build, what kind of budget is going to go into those sets, and figuring out exactly how, profitable Mando Season 4 could very well be in comparison to Mando Season 3, based on how many people tuned in and the whole ratio between how many people stuck around with the show and how many people did not. So when we look at everything related to Jon Favreau, he's been talking to the fans directly time and time again the past couple of months now. Given that he is really trying to hype the fans again, he's trying to get fans more excited about what's to come on Disney+, and we've said this before many times, is that Disney executives believe that the Ahsoka Tano show is going to be the home run for Disney Plus Star Wars. And that's going to be the show, and it's going to overtake The Mandalorian, all these different projections by Disney, which is very encouraging. However, that brings us to what Favreau had to say about Luke Skywalker, and specifically something very specific related to his death, and responding to something also very much specific about reversing his death. And exactly what he had to say is, well, let's just say, quite surprising. So let's tap into this. Now, right now, Disney board members are gathering to create a proper strategy to satisfy the fans that were very unhappy with the recent projects that were put onto Disney+, such as Boba and Kenobi. In a recent interview, however, Favreau was questioned about key elements of Luke Skywalker and the sequel trilogy, and was questioned about reversing Luke Skywalker's death. Favreau went on to answer the question by stating the following: "Let me just say that this has been a conversation that was brought up to us several times when pitching the second season of Ahsoka, and I really can't get into it too much, but we talked this over many times. If Ezra could save Ahsoka, why couldn't another individual save another prominent figure in Star Wars, like Luke, for example? It's a serious thing that we are writing into the lore and what we can and can't do with the world between worlds. And part of this rule system of the worlds that we are crafting is going to tap into something very special involving Luke Skywalker as well. I can assure that. But we also want to showcase other ways that we could do something like bringing such a prominent character such as Luke back. Now, we realize too many fans, it would sound ridiculous to revive Luke and bring him back some way, somehow, but it's something that we are brainstorming right now to get an idea how we could do it in a very special way." Now, I want to pause here quickly about what Favreau is putting out there. Now, we know that this all alludes to a very special project for, of course, the post-Episode 9 series, where there are already multiple storyboards on how Luke is going to come back. And for the longest time, a lot of the Disney executives, the board members, as well as, Bob Iger, the CEO, Jon Favreau, all pitching in on whether or not they wanted to use the world between worlds to bring Luke back somehow, temporarily speaking, or use the power of the wills. And the latter is actually happening, alright? So when we look at everything related to the power of the wills, it's something that was originally created by George Lucas, an original idea that he wanted to implement into Return of the Jedi to bring Obi-Wan Kenobi back to life for a short amount of time as flesh and blood on Endor during the celebration, and that never ended up happening because that was in the earlier drafts of the script, obviously. So basically what Favreau is teasing has a lot to do with the post-Episode 9 series rather than the Ahsoka Tano show and using the world between worlds. I don't believe that they are going to revive Luke using that particular realm, but what they are doing based on the storyboards and all the different pieces of concept art that they've been crafting for this post-Episode 9 series, one of which does illustrate Luke coming back to actually help out the Jedi Order 10 to 15 years after Episode 9 through the power of the wills. So let me just, pick up where we left off here. Now, on top of that, separate from all of this, what Favreau stated, this all alludes to the storyboards, like I say, for the post-Episode 9 series that is set to bring Luke back to life temporarily through the power of the wills, that will bring Luke back as flesh and blood in the new Jedi Order in a very desperate time against a new foe. Who this new foe is, we're not quite sure who the new villain's gonna be just yet. It's said to be based on a Star Wars Legends character, though. Mark Hamill is set to reprise his role as his older version of Luke with a new design, this time around with a more clean-shaven design, much like in Star Wars Legends. Both Jon and Dave reportedly had a very tough time deciding on how they could do this and what kind of backlash they may cause if they don't do this carefully. So, here's the thing about reviving or bringing Luke Skywalker back, right? Is that it is very much, apparent of what Jon said, is that he believes that a lot of fans could very well think of themselves as overreaching or doing something a little too out of the norm. Look, I don't think a lot of fans would complain about Luke coming back to life in a very special way, especially through the power of the gods. The wills, by the way, are godlike beings. They created the entire galaxy, and one would even believe even the universe at that. But so far, the only thing that we do know about the wills is that they watch over all the events that take place during, before, and after the Skywalker saga, and they are the creators of the galaxy. This is not to be confused with the Force priestesses that you have seen before in past animated shows. It's not them, it's something completely different. Now, this, I think, is a very interesting development, because given that Favreau is a die-hard fan of Luke, and yes, he even admitted that he was very unhappy with how Luke Skywalker was treated in The Last Jedi by Rian Johnson. He felt that he did not deserve to die at such an early moment in the sequel trilogy, especially let alone the middle film of the trilogy at that. That really was a big deal and a big problem on their end. So Favreau's really putting it out there that this is something that they are talking about, something that they are brainstorming and trying to finalize, and figuring out a way that's going to seem realistic and not too, overboard or very, fanficky-esque. They want to make sure that it's going to be very much well produced and make a lot of sense, and that it's going to be somewhat balanced. And hence, that's why they're bringing them back temporarily, I guess, to balance things out, right? Otherwise, you can just bring anybody back at that point. But there are going to be circumstances, there are going to be rule systems applied to both the WBW and the power of the wills as well. There's going to be a deep reason why Luke is allowed to come back one time temporarily to actually help the Jedi Order. So guys, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Gun in hand, we are alone again. No, I'm not the one from night to moon.